Okay, y'all, first let me say this. Something is not wanting me to get you this testimony this morning. I planned to talk about this and I kind of knew what I was going to say, and then my thoughts just started running together, and then now things are kind of happening on today that it's not a typical day for me. Like, stuff is going berserk. But I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to give you this testimony because I think it's going to help you, and I think it's going to bring hope. I know it's going to bring hope. If you listen to me and if you do what I tell you, then you're going to not think the way you've been thinking about the economy, about housing, about anything that you need in life. You're going to think differently about it. My little dog is clack, 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 clicking, clicking, clicking through the house. So what prompted me to do this is I saw a young lady, a very popular YouTuber. She was a millennial, and she was talking about how bad the economy is. And she was talking about how she said she just likes to complain. And immediately my mind went, oh my goodness. And then she went on and on and on about housing and about how, the price of this, that, and the third, like everything's just so expensive. And I just thought to myself, if you could just change the way you're speaking and the way you're thinking about this situation, then your life will change and everything will follow. And the reason that I know this is because I am sitting in this house, and if you had told me 2016, 2017, even before that, like for years before that I would be sitting in this house right now, I would have looked at you and laughed, honestly, because our situation was so bad that there's no way we could have been in this house right now. But in order for you to get a full picture of it, I have to start from the beginning. And the beginning, this is a part of the beginning. It's not the full beginning, but I got to start somewhere. I can't go all the way back because I don't have all that time right now. But in order to make this story make sense to you, I'm going to start at 2016. In 2016, I was laid off. I had been working at a job since 2013. I had graduated from college, got my bachelor's degree in business administration, and I knew a person who worked at this company. She said, "You got your degree?" She said, "Come work for me." So I was like, yes. Now, that was the most money I had ever made at that point. So I took that job and I went, everything's going fine, going along good. My husband is a professional musician and had been a professional musician since maybe 2005, 6. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but I do remember that that's around about the time that he started, is because we had moved to another house. And I say another because talking about a streak of bad luck, listen, my family, my husband and I, we've moved our family about 9 times in the 30 years that we've been married. Our kids are 28 and 30, but in the span of their lives, they moved about 9 times. And we didn't have a place, and this is something that has always haunted me. I didn't have a family home for them to come back to because we moved so many times. A couple of times we moved because we were just move to better opportunities, move to different locations. But every time other than that, most of the time, we were moving because we were struggling and we just needed to do something different. But if I can get you to change your perspective and to let you know that just because you are in this situation, it does not mean you are of this situation. So the economy doesn't have to affect you. The price of whatever doesn't have to affect you. And I'm going to tell you why. In 2016, after working for a company for 3 years, the manager that brought me on got let go. And so they decided to go look at everybody that manager brought into the company, and they got rid of everybody that she brought. So I was one of the ones. The new manager that took over for her brought me into a meeting one day. Like, we had been talking about things, we're doing new things, this is happening. They were all supposed to be good things. But then one day she called me into a meeting and she said, "Listen, they're making this change and I gotta tell you." She said, "It affects you." And I'm thinking, okay, it affects me how? And she said, "Well, they're gonna go with this, and so that means that they're not gonna need this." And the this that she was talking about, they weren't gonna need me anymore. So my first thought was, oh my goodness, what are we gonna do? Because my husband was a professional musician at the time and gigs were slow. They were slow. And if you have ever been a professional musician or married to one, then you know that when you don't do gigs, you don't get paid. And if gigs get canceled, then unless you had a really, really good manager that set up all your money ahead of time and got everything right for you, then you don't get that money either. So things were a little bit slow. Fortunately, we had a business that he was working on his slow days or his slow months when gigs weren't coming in. But that's another story too. But so I got laid off, and immediately I started thinking, well, yay, because in my mind, I'm like, I didn't immediately jump to the negative. I'm thinking at that instance, wow, now I get to see what it is God wants me to do. Now I get to see, the kids are getting older. Now it's time for me to see what I can be. But then as I started revealing the news that I got laid off, I started getting like the kind of feedback, oh, well, it's gonna be all right. You always find a job, So it shifted from me being excited about just praying and seeing what God wanted me to do next to, man, I got to get on. I got to get another job. So for the immediacy, I did what everybody normally does is I went to unemployment and let them know I got laid off. And so I started getting unemployment income. That was probably about $300 a week, which was nothing compared to what I was making at the job that laid me off. So that unemployment went on for a few months. And then it got to the point to where, okay, it was just bad. I'm not trying to see what it is I can do anymore. Like, I'm not looking for dreams. I'm looking for money at this point because we were struggling. Because again, my husband's gigs were slow. And then our recording studio during the time, somebody broke into it, took every guitar my husband had. My husband's a bass guitarist and he loves his craft. He's so good at it. But somebody broke into our studio and stole all his guitars. And they were expensive guitars. Left him with nothing. They took everything except our computer and our hard drives that had all our music and everything on it. And I always said, well, they can take the physical instrument, but we're really the instruments. I got an email because I had been applying for jobs. I got an email from a local business here. He said, I saw your information on Indeed. I want to know if you want to come in and talk with us about a position we have here. So long story short, I went to talk to him about the position, got the job. Now this job was paying about $7,000 a year less than what I was making from the job that laid me off. But hey, it was work, it was steady income. And I'm like, okay, let's go. So I went to that job. And when I tell you, in terms of stress and in terms of not being compatible with the person that you work for, it was that situation. Every single day of my life, I was coming home in tears. And I'm not a crier. Like, you can't make me cry. It's gonna take a lot for you to make me cry. Now, anger brings me to tears, but for you, like, just making me cry, that's not me. It was just a bad situation. And so after about a year of that, about a year and a half, almost 2 years, my husband was like, okay, listen, we ain't doing this no more. You just turn your notice in, we'll figure it out. But at that time, I had already applied for 2 other jobs and had interviews, and I was certain that I was gonna get at least one of those jobs. Like, I was certain because the interviews went that well. When you go on an interview for a job and you just know it's gonna work out, there were 2 situations. I thought that I was going to have to choose. It didn't work out that way. I didn't get either one of those jobs. So now I'm working without a paycheck again. Studio work was slow, his work was slow, and I was like, my head is spinning at this point. So I went on the state website and I found some temporary positions. These temporary positions were at a location that was an hour from where we were living at the time. But I called them, I did the application, they called me up, we did the interview, and I got the job. At this point, I'm now $16,000 annually less than what I was getting paid at the other job. And I was only getting paid once a month. So I get this new job and I go to orientation. I have to turn in all my stuff for a direct deposit. We don't have a bank account because things had gotten so bad that our account had stayed in the red so long, they closed our account. So we didn't have a regular bank account. We had a Green Dot card. But I said, hey, I'm a state employee. Let me go to the State Employees Credit Union. I should be able to open an account there. So I go to the State Employees Credit Union to open an account, and they tell me, I'm sorry, we can't open an account for you. We can't offer you an account. And I'm like, why not? I had forgotten that many years back, we had a vehicle that had gotten repossessed, and it was financed through the credit union. And because we still had that debt with them, I'm talking about years back. Because we still had that debt, they wouldn't allow me to open an account. Keep a marker here, because this is going to be important later. So I'm just setting all this up for you guys, okay? Because you have to see how bad this was in order to know that there is hope and there is a way for you to get around all of these things that are happening to you. So 2018's here, and I'm starting my new temporary job. I'm doing a good job. I get hired permanent, and 2019 rolls around. Probably about maybe the spring of 2019, and my husband's like, I've had it with music, it's not working. He played for a really prominent band, and the lead singer had passed away, and they had kind of dispersed, and he had started working for somebody else, and it just wasn't working, and it just wasn't a good situation. He had spent time in prayer, and he's like, okay, I got to do something else. I just don't want to do it anymore. I need you to help me find a job. So I had built a really good rapport with my unit directors and the supervisors in the department of my new job. So I called one of the unit supervisors and I said, hey, I see that this position is available. Is this your position? Is this in your department? And she's like, yeah, you know somebody? And I was like, I do. And so I told her it was my husband. She said, tell him to get his application in today, and I will call him, I'll pull it, and I'll call him in for an interview. And I was like, God, thank you. So he goes in, has an interview, gets the job. He was so happy. He was just happy for us to have a steady income and not have to be so worried about it. Although we were out of the frying pan, we were still jumping into the fire. This was 2019. He started this job in July of 2019. Our 25th wedding anniversary was the 16th. We had already planned a big gathering to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary.
It's our 25th anniversary. We're celebrating tonight. 25 years together. We happy. 25 strong, right, baby?
25 strong, man. Ups and downs, around and everything.
Rips and turns. Yeah, 25. 25 more?
50 more.
50 more.
We went into that. Nobody knew we were broke. Maybe one person knew we were broke, but it was a beautiful celebration. And my husband told me after that, he was like, babe, listen, if you give me some time, I'm gonna get us out of this. We're gonna come out, but I just gotta let you know, we're gonna be in the red for about 6 months. So I was like, you know what? As long as I got you with this attitude and you're leading me, and I was so appreciative of his leadership. It was hard, but when I tell you that every time we got paid, we were in the red. Every single time we got paid, we were in the red. And even during that time, during those 6 months, everything was happening. We got an eviction notice. Our car got repossessed. And this was the car that we were driving on that long commute back and forth to work, because it was the one that was saving us all our money and gas. We had that car, which was a Ford Fusion, and we had a Ford Expedition. Well, God knows we won't drive in the Expedition because gas prices were crazy and we couldn't afford to drive the Expedition. But guess what? Now the Fusion is gone because it got repossessed. My husband went downstairs one morning to go crank the car up because it was cold, and he came back upstairs and said, I said, you didn't have to say it. I knew it. I had a dream about it last night. The car is gone, right? He said, yeah. So we cranked up the Expedition, went up there, had to figure out a way to get back home because we didn't have the gas money to get back home. But it all worked out, and we got through the latter part of 2019. Sticking together and with prayer, we got through it. So 2020 came around, and you know what happens in 2020? COVID. So around March 17th of 2020 was the day that the university decided you guys are gonna have to start working remotely. So everybody went home, everybody. People that worked at the university that couldn't work remotely, everybody had to go home. Everything was shut down. Work was shut down, churches were shut down, restaurants, everything was shut down. Now, the church part, not being able to gather is key, because you got to remember, God started making things really uncomfortable for my husband in 2019, the prior year, and he decided to get out of the music industry. Had he not decided to get out of the music industry, he would have been stuck. Because a lot of musicians that didn't get out back then, that were struggling, now 2020 rolls around and they really ain't got nothing. And nobody's hiring because of COVID. God moved on my husband's heart to get out. And so he got out and he had a job. And so 2020 comes around, we go home, I'm working remotely. And honestly, for us, everything's going okay, because the beginning of 2020, we start to see black again. Like, we're getting back into the black. We're actually starting to save a little bit of money. So we decided, let's get our credit right. Let's pull our credit. We hadn't pulled our credit in so long because we knew it was bad. We just didn't want to see how bad it was. So I prayed for all those years, because we had a foreclosure before that. We had to leave the home that we owned. And I was praying, God, we want a house. I just want a house. I want a place to call our own. I want us to have a home. I want to buy a house. I want us to have a house. So finally we decided to start working on our credit, and we got in contact with a realtor. She had a lender to look at us, and apparently they said, ain't no go right now. So she told us a couple of things to do to start building our credit, and we didn't hear from her for months. So we started working on our credit. Well, sending letters. I was sending letters, disputing things, like just getting stuff cleaned up, and we were still saving money. So this is all 2020. We're rebuilding and we're getting our bearings, and we're learning about the possibilities. And so finally, 2020 goes by, we hit 2021. And that is when the disaster of all disasters hits. My husband's parents and his brother contracted COVID sometime around like mid-February, and by March 6th, my mother-in-law passed away. March 11th, my father-in-law passed away. Yeah. 2021, this was the thick of it. This is along the times when people weren't able to give their loved ones proper burials. We had a graveside service for my mother-in-law, and then a week later we had a graveside service for my father-in-law. So my husband, they and his siblings, they didn't even really get to have the traditional service that they would have loved to have had for their parents. We worked on our credit, worked on it. And then we finally got approved to buy a house. So our realtor, I called her and I was like, you know what, I'm kind of ready. Let's talk to the lender and see if we can look at our situation again and see, if we can get approved for a house. So she was like, okay, so cool, let's go. So she called me back that same day. She was like, well, you ready to start house hunting? She was like, got you approved. And she told us the amount. It was like, we got you approved for $199,000. And we were like, yay, but we approved though. Right after that, my husband's supervisor leaves, okay? Upper management comes to him and says, we pulled your file and we think that you should apply for this job, the supervisor position. So automatically, we're thinking he gets this job, that means that our financial eligibility with the lender is going to change a bit, because now with that job, that our income doubles. And really at $199,000, you guys, at that time when you're hunting for a house, there was nothing. There was nothing. Because remember, the housing market had gone crazy because the interest rates were so low, and so everybody was jacking house prices up like way beyond astronomical. It was just crazy. We were just happy to get approved. But at that amount, we just were not finding homes, and we were getting outbid on anything if we found them, because although we had saved up some money, we didn't have, what we needed in order to be able to like outbid some of these people. Long story short, my husband applies for the job, gets the interview. We're super confident. And then we got the news that they went with another applicant. He was devastated. I was devastated, because he knew what needed to be done to turn things around. He knew before he went on the road, he was a supervisor in the Department of Social Services, so he had that skill set. So they decided to go with somebody else, and it was so bad like that they put the person's name on the office that they hired before they even gave my husband his regret letter. Okay, well, all right, God, you're doing something. Let's just be patient. But he was devastated, because remember now, he had just lost his parents. So this was something that had really lifted his spirit. Like new opportunities, new growth, and new things for him to concentrate on. And then all that went out the window. Well, this was August when he got the interview and the news that they weren't going to hire him. The whole rest of the year went by, and that new supervisor didn't come on. So we were like, where's the new supervisor? Everybody was like, where's the new supervisor? Where is he? We see his name, but he's not here. And my husband still hadn't gotten his regret letter yet from the state. The state requires human resources departments within units to send candidates who don't get hired for jobs. They're required to send them regret letters. It doesn't matter that they work there, and you got to send it to their house. So we're looking for this regret letter, and everybody's asking questions like, where's the new supervisor? Not here, not here. Since August to December, we're waiting for the regret letter. We don't get it. Christmas, holidays, everything goes by. New Year rolls in, January. Well, February, the unit manager for my husband comes to him and says, so, are you still interested in the supervisor job? And my husband goes, well, yeah. Things didn't work out with the other applicant. Now, y'all, sometimes I'm like, okay, God, we've been going through all this, and you knew the whole time that they weren't gonna hire that dude. You already knew it, but we didn't know it. But he allowed us to go through it because he wanted us to develop our faith during this time. And I'm like, but couldn't we have done this a little bit, a different way for my husband? Because he's already on the upper side of depression, especially with losing his parents. And then that news about the job that he really, really wanted, that didn't work out. Y'all, it was so hard. But God always has our best interests at heart. He took that situation and he made it all work together for our good. So now he got the job. Our income has doubled. We had taken a break from hunting for houses because we were just over it, because we had put in so many offers and so many offers got rejected. It was just devastating. And I had told my husband at this point, don't show me any more houses. I don't want to hear about any more houses. This is 2022. I said, I don't want to hear about any more houses. Don't show me anything else. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. I'm done with it. But one day, he just happened to be sitting at his computer and he was looking at houses. And he calls to me from the other room in our apartment. He says, hey, babe, can you come here for a second? And I kind of knew, I was like, what is he doing? Because I heard him in there clicking around. And so I was like, yes. And he said, I think I see a house. And I was like, didn't I ask? I said, I don't want to see any more houses. And so he said, but no, he said, the thing of it is, this one, it's a new build and they haven't started it yet. So he immediately gets on the phone with our realtor. We don't even go and see the area. She just whips up the contract, sends everything in, and long story short, we go under contract for this house. Finally. And this house is way more expensive than the other houses that we had been looking at, which was a little bit scary to me because now we're in this situation with this lender and the interest rates keep going up. Now, y'all, we're in a race against time here because the Federal Reserve, like those people are like, they're trying to slow things down, like all the spending, they're trying to slow this down, but they're doing it right in the middle of us. We finally got a house, we finally got a lender, and all this stuff is happening with the interest rates. So we weren't locked in yet. We start building the house, we go and we start picking out all our finishes for the house, and you know, everything is going along good.
Okay, looky. And we got lights up there. This is the driveway, y'all, and the sidewalk. Hey, look. Hey, come on, mama.
Floors.
Oh my goodness. We have floors, people.
Ooh, sink.
Oh, the faucet is here. Yes, the floor. That's the one you chose, Daddy. My husband is pimping, y'all. Wow.
And by the time summer of 2022 gets here, the lender that we have says, unfortunately, we are not going to be able to do this as USDA, because we were in a rural area and we decided to go with USDA because we didn't have to have a down payment. So we got that call or that email, and they said, what her words were, the lender, it is impossible for us to do a USDA loan for you now because of the interest rates, and the interest rates is going to throw you out of eligibility unless we go this route. And that route was FHA. And with FHA, we had to have a 3.5% down payment. We didn't have that money, okay? We didn't have it. And so at this point, they're still building the house, and you know, things are still trucking along. We're still going on our visits with the project manager, and we're going through and we're doing inspections and we're doing site visits, and all this is happening, and the whole time we don't know if we have a loan. This lender was like, this is not gonna work. They draw up a whole new contract, a whole new loan for an FHA loan. And I'm sitting there looking at the amount of money that we're gonna have to put down, like including closing costs and everything else. And so I'm running around now trying to figure out like what programs we can get for down payment assistance. And meanwhile, our realtor is still reaching out to her other lenders that she works with, and we're applying with them. And because y'all, we don't have a loan. We have a contract for a house, but we don't have a loan. So a couple months go by. Now it's about August. We're supposed to close early October. We still don't have a lender. So I'm like, God, what are we gonna do? We were almost there. It's like every time I get close, life just moves the goalposts, and like, what is happening? And like, I'm just so discouraged and I'm just hurt. And God says, go to the credit union. What? Now, what you have to understand about God is his instructions just don't make sense. I went to the credit union already. When I first started this job back in 2018, 4 years ago, and they told me they wouldn't open an account for me because we owed them a debt for a vehicle. I'm like, you're telling me to now go back to these people who just a couple of years ago told me they wouldn't even open a checking account for me unless we paid this debt off. We didn't have the money to pay the debt off. At that time, it was $10,000. He said, go to the credit union. So my realtor got in contact with a person at the credit union. I got on the phone with this person at the credit union. Mind you, y'all, the pressure is on. Like I'm walking in this, but I'm fearful. I'm doing what God told me to do, but it's like the children of Israel walking up to the Red Sea, like, and Pharaoh's army behind them. That's what I'm feeling like. And I'm on the phone with this guy, and I know everything that's on the line. If this doesn't work, we don't have a house. So honestly, the process of talking to him is almost like I was talking to an angel. I can't really describe what it felt like, because he was saying, don't worry, everything's fine. You know, we'll get it worked out for you. This is good, it's good, no problem. Yeah, so turn your income in and this and this and that, or whatever. And like walking through that process with him, I'm telling you, it was literally like an angel had me by my hand and was pulling me through the process. He said, now about your vehicle that you had with us, are you able to pay $5,000 to take care of that? If you can pay $5,000, then we're finished with the approval process. We can go ahead and get you into underwriting. Y'all, we had about $8,000 in the bank in savings. He said, yeah, $5,000, that'll take care of it. So it wasn't the $10,000 that they wouldn't open a checking account for me before. It is now just pay the $5,000 and you're in good standing and we're off to the races. So we got the loan, 100% financing, no down payment, just to pay the little debt that we had. Now that blemish is gone, and we go in and we sign for our house. We close on my son's birthday, on my firstborn's birthday, October 28th, 2022, we closed on the house. If you had told me years ago that 20 years later, when we lost a home that we loved, that we'd ever be able to buy a house again, that we'd ever have the income that we have, and that we'd ever be living at the level of comfort, even though the economy is a mess, I get it and I understand. But what I'm here to tell you is that it doesn't have to be a mess for you. One of the things on my husband's wish list was that he wanted a house that was at least 3,000 square feet. Well, we got this floor plan and we saw that the builder listed it at 2,900 square feet. And we said, okay, well, we're close. Well, when the surveyor came in to do the appraisal, to give it to the credit union, he said that the house is actually 3,012 square feet. Now, y'all tell me that's not God. And the interest rates that were spiking, that like, we didn't get the same interest rate that everybody else got. Our interest rate was much lower because of the credit union. And that made our situation so much more manageable. Our mortgage is comfortable. We still have good credit. But this is all because of being in the kingdom of God. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things, the things that you need will be added to you. Jesus said, don't worry about what you eat. Don't worry about that stuff. If you're worried about that stuff, it's because you're not in the will of God. And I submit to you today that you need to get in the will of God. Get to know him, because he will meet all of your needs. And there is nothing that will be impossible to you. I hope that you subscribe, and I hope that you give this video a thumbs up. Tell somebody about it, share it. Let me know your experiences. Once you come into the kingdom, let me know the things that God is doing for you. I'd love to hear about it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time.